Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT podcast here on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell. Alongside me, as always, Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. Glad to have you guys back in here with me. Today on the rundown, we got some NFC North NFL, NFC South, NFC everything we're going to talk about today. We got to finish up the NFL before the preseason starts, and then next Monday we got some MLB to get into. But that is all that's on the rundown for today. Cale, go ahead and take it away.
We're going to kick it off today with the NFC North. We're going to start with Gavin and I's team, the Chicago Bears. Finished fourth in the NFC North last year. They were 5-11. Gav, what do you think about the Bears this upcoming year?
Now, the Bears last year were, I don't want to say that they were disappointing. They kind of, in the words of Coach Green, they were what we thought they were, right? 5-11, last in the division. But they had the 11th best offensive line. Cody Whitehair, Kyle Long, Leno Jr. These guys are all studs. Kyle Long being a Pro Bowler. Cody Whitehair being one of the best centers in the game. They definitely have guys that can protect Trubisky as long as they can stay healthy. We know that they've had some concerns on that side of the football. 10th best in defense last year. So they had a top 10 defense with 11 losses. That's hard to believe. But this is a team that had six or more losses by less than 8 points. So it came down to one possession games last year for them. This record could have very easily been flipped if things had gone their way. Where they really struggled last year, 30th in total offense. That's atrocious. That's not very good. Keep in mind, this was a team whose quarterback for the first 4 games of the season was Mike Glennon. Yep. So that doesn't help you out much. Mitchell Trubisky took over, went 4-8 in those 12 games. For a rookie, you would like to see what he has this upcoming year. But last year definitely was, I don't want to say disappointment because it was kind of a feel-out year. John Fox, he's gone now. We have Matt Nagy from Kansas City getting his first shot at a head coaching role, and I really like what he's saying about the offense and Trubisky. Notable acquisitions in free agency, we had Allen Robinson, of course, from the Jaguars, Trey Burton from Philly, just coming off that Super Bowl victory, Taylor Gabriel, the stud slot receiver from the Atlanta Falcons, and we finally got a place kicker in Cody Parkey from the Miami Dolphins. That's been missing since Robbie Gould went to the Giants. So I really like what the Bears are doing here. They were able to re-sign guys like cornerback Prince Amukamara, Kyle Fuller, even Sam Acho was a big part of that top 10 defense last year. And I'm really looking forward to this upcoming season. I think that people are going to be surprised. The doubters are going to say that they're not going to be worth a damn next year, but I got them going 10-6.
Whew! Whoa! Hot takes here from Gav. Okay, I agree with you on a lot of that. Mitch Trubisky, he threw 60% last year, which is a good
right on league average.
Right, good completion percentage, especially for a rookie quarterback. His problem, he threw 7 touchdowns and 7 picks in 12 games. So he didn't throw a lot of touchdowns in his time, and he was very, he didn't make smart decisions all the time. So that some of that will come with experience. So I think he'll be better into his second year, but I don't know if it's 10-6 better. I think the most underrated thing they did in the offseason was getting Cody Parkey. The Bears tried 5 kickers last season. That is a lot of kickers. And Cody Parkey is a guy from Miami that we know can kick the ball and kick it well. So I think that's a very underrated pickup that they made in the offseason. And Allen Robinson, great wide receiver. Part of the reason that Blake Bortles and the Jags aren't going to do well this year is they lost their receiver core, including that guy, AR-15. Dude's a stud. Super fast, great hands. He definitely bolsters their offense, dragging them out of that hole from 30th in the league. It's definitely looking up for the Bears, especially with Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen still playing running backs, moving out to slot, doing whatever they got to do. But I just don't see it all coming together this year. I think they're starting to move in the right direction, but I don't think it's going to jump that quickly. I've got the Bears going 6-10 this year, not 10-6.
So I've got a quick question for Gav real quick, and as well as you. In the draft, they did draft the linebacker out of Georgia, Roquan Smith. I watched him a little bit in the college football championship against Alabama, and he looked pretty solid. How do you guys think he's going to be on our defensive end this season?
I can tell you this. We haven't had a go-to linebacker since Briggs and Urlacher retired, and I think this is the next best Bears linebacker. We've had guys like Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, two guys I mentioned previously. This is a guy that's going to follow in their footsteps and really bolster this defense that is already top 10. I think with him, you might be looking at a top 7 defense. This is a leader. We know that he come up short in the championship game, but that's nothing that falls on his shoulders. Nick Saban is a tremendous coach in the college game, and Alabama's hard to beat every single year. So this guy, I definitely could maybe push for top 5, but I definitely think top 7 is realistic this year.
Oh, I'm very big on Georgia players. As we talked about Nick Chubb last time on the Browns, I love Georgia players. I love Georgia football. I think Roquan Smith was the best decision they could have made. I love this guy. Even that championship game they lost, I think he had like 2.5 sacks, 12 tackles, and an interception or something like that. He's a freak. I think this was a great pick. Him in general, I think he definitely amps up their defense, but I think the defense will take a step back this year. They got back a lot of guys, but they didn't really leave themselves a lot of room to improve. Roquan Smith was really the only new thing they got for that defense. I still think they'll be a top 15 at least, but I don't see them moving up too much. I think they'll float somewhere around that 10 to 12 in defense again this year.
All right, guys, moving on. We're going to go ahead and go on to Green Bay, Tyson's favorite team.
Des got it.
They were 7-9 last season, third in the NFC North. I have a feeling that their season would have been a way different ball game if Aaron Rodgers didn't get hurt and miss 9 games. But with Rodgers coming back with no Jordy Nelson, what do you guys think? Gavin, what do you think he's going to do this season?
I think that they'll definitely be better than 7-9 because we know that Brent Hundley is not going to be their starting quarterback. Rodgers hopefully coming back healthy. Like I said, Tyson doesn't like Green Bay. I sure as hell don't like Green Bay, but I got to respect Aaron Rodgers and what he's been able to do over the past decade, really. Last year they had the 13th best offensive line. Pretty average, but they do have a left tackle in David Bakhtiari. I can't say his name.
Bakhtiari.
Thank you. It's hard for me to pronounce his name, but he is a stud. I've seen him play before many times in the NFC North, and he's looking like he's going to be a Pro Bowler. Already was last year, going to be for years to come. This is where the Packers struggle, is 22nd in total defense, and their defense was healthy for most of the season. This is what's kept Aaron Rodgers back from the Super Bowl every single year, other than the one time they beat Pittsburgh. This is a guy who definitely you would think maybe 2-3 championships by now. Just hasn't happened for him. 26th in total offense. Like I said, Cale mentioned earlier, this is without Rodgers for 9 games. He'll be back. They'll be top half of the league for sure. No problem. But will it be enough for them to make a playoff push with this defense as a liability? I'm not sure. They had notable acquisitions like Tramon Williams from Arizona, great corner. This is my favorite one, Muhammad Wilkerson. I think this is going to be an underrated signing from the New York Jets, mostly because the Jets have always been a decent defensive team, but Wilkerson's always been the anchor on that front four. And then, of course, they got Jimmy Graham from Seattle. He's getting up there in age, but he's always been reliable. Those days in New Orleans with Drew Brees and obviously playing with Russell Wilson, he knows what he's doing. They were able to re-sign Devon House. I think he was probably their best corner other than Sam Shields, who they lost in free agency. And then, of course, losing Jordy Nelson to Oakland over the summer. That's not going to help them. But they do have Martellus Bennett to pair up with Jimmy Graham. I think that tight end duo is going to be looking very nice. Rodgers also has the other Rodgers to throw to at wide receiver. So he does still have a plethora of guys he can get the football to. Their running back situation, is Ty Montgomery going to be enough? I think that's a big question mark. But like I said, it all comes down to their liability on defense and if that's going to hold them back.
I'm with you. I think the defense will definitely hold them back, but I think their offense took a step back this year too, especially losing Jordy Nelson. Jimmy Graham's a good signing, but he hasn't been the same since he left New Orleans. I'm real big on that Muhammad Wilkerson pick that you touched on from the Jets. Big defensive tackle, takes up a lot of space. That is the one thing that will save their defense, is they will be good in the run-stopping game. Other than that, not so much. But with Aaron Rodgers back, that's really your key. This dude is top 2 quarterback in the league for sure, up there with Brady. Him and Brady are the only two guys in this league that can pick 5 people out of the stands and throw to them and still win a game, just because they're that good.
I'd throw Drew Brees in there too.
Yes and no. I've got mixed feelings on Drew Brees. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I think Green Bay's main problem with all these things, their wide receiver core is weak. Their defense is awful. My biggest thing for the Packers is their O-line.
Yeah.
They've got so many good guys. They had TJ Lang. They had David Bakhtiari. They had all these big guys, and they couldn't stay healthy over the last 3 years. They haven't been able to stay healthy, keep them all on the field. They went through the most, I think they were either most or second most in starting lineups for their offensive line throughout the season.
I think they had 13 or 16 switches or different combinations, yeah.
And that's the reason that Aaron Rodgers went down. You can't win games if you get Aaron Rodgers hurt because you can't block for him. So right now, the biggest liability for the Packers is that O-line. And if they don't fix that, they'll struggle. And you like Bakhtiari a little bit. I don't care for him. I think he's a guy, he's got health issues, can't stay on the field. When he is on the field, he's incredibly good. But he has mental lapses, and he's just... I think that goes to him not being able to stay on the field as much as they need him to.
So real quick, when I think of the Green Bay Packers organizations, I obviously think of Aaron Rodgers. But behind Aaron Rodgers, I think of Jordy Nelson and then Mike McCarthy's horrible play calling. But how big of a loss is Jordy Nelson to Rodgers, who was honestly one of his go-to receivers over the past, 5, 6, 7 years? So how big of a loss is that going to be with Nelson now in Oakland?
The issue I take with that is the people that say Jordy Nelson is done and that he's not going to do anything in Oakland. There's a reason that Aaron Rodgers went to him every single time. There's a reason he caught more touchdown passes than any other receiver on that team. There's another reason why he led that team in receptions for at least a few seasons. He's a great guy. He's a great receiver. He's a great player, great teammate. And I think him playing with Derek Carr in Oakland is going to be amazing, not only for that team but that division, because it's not very good. And now that you have Oakland, well, I think we agree on 10-6 that they're going to go. They could even be better than that. Who knows? But Derek Carr is no slouch. He's definitely I would say top 10, top 12 quarterback in this league. And then, but for Rodgers, this is definitely going to be interesting. Like Tyson said, their offense has regressed as a whole. They had Bennett last year, and what did they do?
Right.
They're going to get Graham, but has that helped the Seahawks get back to even the championship game? No. So it'll definitely be interesting. But yeah, they're going to miss him. I can tell you that much.
Oh, for sure. Jordy was Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. You could see that just by the amount of passes he threw to him every game. So I think he'll be missed. I wonder how Rodgers is going to take that throughout the season.
Moving on, guys. Detroit, the Lions, and Matthew Stafford. It's about the only person I can think of on their offense besides Calvin Johnson still there. But anyway.
Nope.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
so
he
that's
retired.
the only person I can think of. All right, so they were 9-7 last year. They're second in the NFC North. Gav, how do you think the Lions are going to pan out this season?
The Lions, to me, they're not looking too good, but that's because their offensive line was 19th in the NFL, and they throw the ball a lot. Matthew Stafford has thrown the ball more times in the past few years than any other quarterback not named Peyton Manning. Yeah. And even his last year, he didn't throw the ball that much. He had help with his running backs. So when you have an offensive line that's in the bottom third of the league, you're not looking too good. They were 27th in total defense, which was sixth worst. That's very similar to Green Bay. That's not going to help them win games, especially losing guys in free agency, but we'll get to that. 13th best offense in the NFL with a guy like Matt Stafford. That was surprising to me when I looked at the statistics going into this. 9-7. They won, I think, 3 or 4 games by one possession, which could have gone the other way. So you could be looking at a 5-11 football team that made the playoffs, but as a fluke. Now, I'm sorry, Detroit fans, if you want to grill me for that, go ahead, but I don't know too many Lions fans. We're going to get on to the notable acquisitions that they got, which the Lions were very active in free agency this year. They got Levine Toilolo from Atlanta, great tight end to replace Ebron, who left. They have got Sylvester Williams, defensive tackle from Tennessee. LeGarrette Blount, coming off a championship in Philadelphia. He's going to be their new starting running back. They got Deshaun Shedd from Seattle, decent corner. And then, of course, Devin Kennard, linebacker from the Giants, who's an upcoming stud. I think this was a great signing for them. The Lions had so many contracts up at the end of the year that they needed to fill this roster. I don't want to say with misfits, but a bunch of guys that have never played together is going to be interesting to watch because the chemistry needs to be there for your football team to win games. They were able to re-sign Nevin Lawson, who was a corner, and then, of course, Tavon Wilson at safety, who actually came off a pretty decent season for them. The problem that I have with Detroit is they retained a couple guys in their defense, but like I said, brought in all of these free agents. And are they going to be able to put up better numbers than 19th in the league? Their offense I expect to be pretty much the same. I don't want to say mediocre, but top half of the league at least. How many more years does Stafford have left of putting up numbers like he does? And can they get him any more help before the season starts? That's the biggest question for me.
Yeah, I see the Lions taking a step back this year. As you kind of mentioned, they got a lot of good pieces. LeGarrette Blount, Sean Shedd from Seattle, but I just don't think it helps them out very much. And Detroit is one of those teams. They had the first defeated season, then they won 1-15, and then they were 12-4, and then they were back to 7-9, and then they were 11-5, and then they were back to 4-12. They're a very up and down team. And I hate to say it, but I think 9-7 was their up year, especially with Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay coming back. I don't see them doing very well. I've actually got them doing worse than the Bears this year. I think they're definitely taking a step back. I've got Detroit finishing at 5-11 for the season. I don't think they did enough. They were very active, but they lost a lot of pieces. Their offense hasn't really recovered since Megatron left. They haven't found a good back. They finally got LeGarrette Blount, but he's getting old. In your notes, you put LeGarrette Blount was a great pick on the offensive side. If it would have happened 3 years ago, 100%, you nailed that. It's too late for them to find a good running back because there's not really anything for him to do. So I see the Lions definitely taking a step back. This is going to be another one of their down years. I love Matt Stafford, another Georgia kid. Dude can sling the ball. I think he'll still throw for 3,500 yards this season just because. But I just don't see him winning very many games. I think they'll lose a lot of those games that they won by a possession or less.
Oh, yeah, I agree. 5-11 is definitely realistic for them. Step back, like I said, it's a 5-11 football team last year that just happened to win a couple games. I mean, that's all it was.
Yep.
So we're going to move on here to this team that I feel like is going to win the NFC North again. Obviously, it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings. I just feel like that they're the most dominant team in the league. They finished 13-3 last year. I see them going 14-2, just winning one more game. They're just that good. They are a Super Bowl contender in my opinion. So, Gab, what do you think about the Vikings?
I agree that they're a Super Bowl contender. Do I think that they'll win 14 games? Absolutely not. I think that they've lost too many pieces on the defensive side of things because when you have the number one defense, guys tend to think that they can carry that elsewhere. But with that said, just to put salt in the wound, their offensive line ranked 22nd in the league last year, which was 11th overall. Not very good. Number one, 11th worst, by the way, not best. Number one defense last year, that definitely helps. But when you lose a bunch of guys in free agency, that's going to come down a little bit. I still think they're a top 5 defense for sure. They haven't lost key guys, but 11th in total offense with Case Keenum at quarterback, which leads me into their acquisitions in free agency of Kirk Cousins from the Washington Redskins. This is a guy who I think is definitely an upgrade from Case Keenum. He is a system quarterback playing under Jay Gruden in Washington. But with that said, I mean, the guy, he finds a way to win games, To quote Kirk Cousins, you like that? I like that, all right? I think that he's going to come into Minnesota and he's going to fit in just fine, especially having a guy like Stephon Diggs to throw to. He's throwing to Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon and Reed in Washington. I think that he's got a good core of guys there in Minnesota. However, the Vikings are not going to re-sign Michael Floyd. Michael Floyd said that he did not want to come back to Minnesota. He's looking to go elsewhere. Hasn't signed with a team yet, so we'll have to see how that goes. But the Vikings lost so many pieces on that ranked defense, number one ranked defense over the summer. I mean, Kirk Cousins at quarterback. It's a situation for me that last year was lightning striking, right? And it's not going to happen twice. I got them going 12-4, but still finishing first in the division.
I do not like that. I'm going to put it out there. I don't like Kirk Cousins. Not a big fan. I think he's definitely an upgrade from Keenum, but I don't think he fits well. Their O-line ranked 22nd last year. That's not good. And I think part of the reason that lightning struck and the magic happened is because the offensive line was that bad. I think it gave Keenum a chance to just roll and sling it and see what happened. And I don't think Cousins can do that. I think he can roll and he can throw it, but he's not very accurate when he's moving. He's a pocket passer. He'll run it when he needs to, but he's a pocket passer. So I don't think he fits well, especially with a bad offensive line. I think he's going to get hit and beat up. We saw the Vikings quarterbacks get hit and get beat up. They went through 3 of them last year because of injuries. So I think he's going to get hit. I don't think he's going to get hurt and put out for the season, but he's not going to like it, and I think it's going to mess with him. That being said, I still think Minnesota wins this division, but I don't think they improve from last year. I don't think they're going to be 13-3 or 14-2. I've got them taking a couple steps back. I'm going 11-5, winning the division by a game. I think the main thing that helped them out on defense was getting Sheldon Richardson from Seattle. I love defensive tackles, especially 350-pounders. Big, just soak up 2-3 guys every play, stop the run. That definitely bolsters their defense that lost a couple pieces. So I've got Minnesota still winning the NFC North, but it'll be closer this year, and we'll have to see how Kirk Cousins does. But I don't think a lot of people are going to like that after he doesn't show up the first couple weeks.
We'll see.
So, real quick, with the Vikings signing Kirk Cousins, why would they get rid of Case Keenum, who obviously has proven himself, and he's a decent quarterback. It's not like he's a slouch. He came off the bench. What was he, a third stringer? So he came off the bench and got him to the playoffs. And not only that, he beat the New Orleans Saints on a kind of a fluke play, a defensive mental breakdown. So why would you get rid of Case Keenum, a guy who's a little bit cheaper than Cousins, for Kirk Cousins, who obviously is a quarterback that people either really like or really hate?
Because they should have lost in the divisional round. I mean, that's the only other way to put it. I mean, you got home field advantage, and it came down to a freak play by Sean Lattimore, right? And he missed tackle. Stephon Diggs made an incredible athletic play on the sideline, not stepping out of bounds and taking a distance. But and overall, I just think Kirk Cousins has more experience, and he's just a better quarterback. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I think he plays, I don't want to say in a tougher division, but definitely a stranger division. They haven't had a same back-to-back division winner since, I think, 2004.
03-04.
Yeah, so that's, I don't know. I just think Kirk Cousins is better. And why Minnesota didn't give him a chance, I don't know. I think I might have rolled the dice on maybe a 2 or 3 year deal with Keenum, or if he had that left on his contract. But he signed with Denver, and I mean, the rest is history. So
I think you hit it. Kirk Cousins is definitely a better quarterback. I don't like Kirk Cousins, and I can say that. Case Keenum, I think you're slanging the wood a little bit there, saying that he's proven himself. Before this past year that he played on a really, really good team and won some games, he was a mediocre backup at best. He played on several teams that he didn't win very many games with. I don't know what his exact record was, but I'm pretty sure it was a losing one before he came to the
You're not wrong.
So I think 1 year of having a good season doesn't mean he's proven himself. I can understand he had a really good year. But he wasn't worth the money that they would have had to pay him to get him to stay for another year or 3.
So real quick, go ahead. We got the records. What do you guys think they're going to finish? What's the NFC North going to look like, Tyson?
Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit.
Gav?
I have the Vikings, and then I have Chicago and Green Bay both at 10-6, with Chicago winning the tiebreaker, and then I have Detroit at 5-11, finishing up last.
Go Bears! But anyway,
the Bears.
We're going to move on to the NFC East. Obviously, Tyson's favorite division for one reason. That would be the Dallas Cowboys.
Favorite team, least favorite division.
Okay, because of Philly, we get it. But we're moving on to the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys. Tyson, I want to throw some stats at you real quick. Last season, Dak Prescott, he threw 13 interceptions last year. You know, that's a lot of interceptions in my opinion for a guy who's supposed to be a top-tier quarterback. But although Dak this season did not even make the top 100 players, let alone the top 10 quarterbacks.
Blasphemy.
So not making the top 100, what do you think that Dak and the Cowboys are going to accomplish this year?
Well, we got to remember Dak threw 2 interceptions his rookie season. It was bound to happen. Everybody throws interceptions. He had to kind of make up a little bit for last year. But if you look at the rest of his stats, he's almost better in almost every category except his passer or his QB rating because of the interceptions. Other than that, he didn't fumble the ball anymore. He still threw just as many touchdowns. He had more throwing yards this season, and a slightly lower completion percentage, I believe. But I think a lot of that comes with Ezekiel Elliott sitting out 6 games. With Zeke playing all 16 this season, he still went for almost 1,000 yards in 10 games and one game against Denver where he had 28. So in 9 games, he basically got 1,000 yards. So with Zeke back, he was averaging 4 yards a carry last season. I can't imagine what he'll do with a full season and not that 28-yard game against Denver with 21 rushes. I think there's nowhere to go but up. They were 9-7 last year. I think they take this division by storm. As Gavin touched on earlier, there hasn't been a repeat winner in this division since the 03-04 seasons. So I don't see it happening again. I don't think Philly's going to repeat this division. It's almost impossible. This division's so good, so competitive. It's so hard to do it, and I think Dallas will take that crown this year. With Zeke back and Dak coming off a bad season, as a lot of people would say, because of his interceptions. But they'll definitely get going, get rolling, especially with some of the moves they made. Releasing Des Bryant, not a big fan of. Jason Witten retiring sucks. What a stud.
Hall of Fame, first ballot for sure.
Absolutely. But they signed a couple big guys on defense, which has been their struggling point over the last couple of years. And that goes a long way, bolstering that defense.
I would like to add on to Dak Prescott. I want to say that, he had 13 interceptions, but he almost had 24 touchdowns. So if you're looking at a 2.0 touchdown-interception ratio, you're looking pretty solid in the league. Mm-hmm. Over 3,000 total yards, sitting at 3,300, 86.6 QB rating. That's just almost right on average. So, he's looking pretty good. Like you said, with Zeke, I think that would have been looking in the 90s, maybe close to 100. He's looking really good, like his rookie season. Excuse me. This is a guy who I think people have questions about his leadership and if he's able to actually get a hold of this Cowboys team, not just the offense, the whole team. Be the sole leader with Zeke, because we know on the defensive side, like you said, they've been struggling. Sean Lee, as a guy I want to touch on, he has tried his hardest over the past decade to hold that defense together. He's been there a long time. He's a savvy veteran. Last year alone, in 11 games, keep in mind, he missed 5 games. He had 70 solo tackles at the linebacker position, which I don't even know how many were for a loss. But
they tried to keep that boy out of the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, that was disrespectful, to say the least. I think this is a guy who is underrated, and I think he gets a bad rap because Skip Bayless talks way too much about him, because I think he's a stud, but, every time you mention the Cowboys, Skip's got to say something about Sean Lee. No, this is a team that I think is. They went 9-7 last year. I think it was pretty average. I don't want to say that they underperformed or overperformed, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went 9-7, 10-6 again. That's where I got them.
You get Zeke back for 6 more games. I got him winning at least 4 of those. I'm not going to put him 4 wins over 9, but I've got him going 12-4.
So real quick, Tyson, as a Cowboys fan, I see a lot of stuff on Twitter, and not only Twitter, I see it on ESPN or wherever I'm looking. I see a lot of things saying that Jason Garrett's got to go. So I want to get your solid opinion on Jason Garrett, and is he capable of leading this Dallas Cowboys team?
Jason Garrett is the most average coach ever. Since he took over in 2008, he's literally like 153 and 153, or 154 and 150, something like that. He is literally average, 500 for his career. I don't think he's the problem. Jason Garrett, he's an average coach. He gets the job done. The players respond to him well. I think a lot of that is he inherited a bad team when he got it, which didn't help. But that being said, he still went 8-8 for 6 years when he first got the team. So I don't think Jason Garrett's got to go. I think he's the best option available right now. Now, if Andy Reid were to become available or someone like that, I would say jump all over that. But right now, Jason Garrett leads the team well. They respond to him, and he's just the best option available. So I don't think he's a problem.
All right, guys. Moving on to the Super Bowl champs, your Philadelphia Eagles. 13-3, first in the NFC, obviously. And not only that, Super Bowl champions, of course. One guy I'm going to talk about real quick, since I don't get to talk much. I don't follow the NFL near as hard as these guys do. I want to talk about Nick Foles. They're going to be the best backup quarterback in the league ever. Since Carson Wentz is obviously going to return week 1. Nick Foles last year, 7 games. He had 57 completions on 101 attempts. He was 56%. Not bad for a backup quarterback. Not only that, a Super Bowl MVP. What do you guys think Nick Foles is going to do this year before you give us your predictions on the Eagles as a whole?
Well, as long as Carson Wentz stays healthy, he's not going to do a damn thing, which is not bad when he's collecting that check. Do I think it's the strangest thing I've ever seen as a Super Bowl MVP backing up a second-year guy in Carson Wentz next year?
A potential another Super Bowl MVP.
Or third-year guy next year. Yeah, it's well, I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that Carson Wentz, had he not been hurt, would have been MVP of the league. That's just numbers speak for themselves. Second-year guy. I mean, you got Tom Brady, but when you got a guy that's 21, 22 years old, putting up the numbers that he's putting up, going 13-3, I don't think that's anything short of incredible. Because do I think that they would have got to 13-3 with Carson Wentz and not Nick Foles? Absolutely. They might even had a shot at 14-2 because Nick Foles lost that close one towards the end of the season. So, I mean, you got, especially when you got receivers like Alshon Jeffrey and
former Bear
Macklin and Aguilar. I mean, you got a core of receivers there in Philly who are absolute studs. Yeah, they lost to Garrett Blunt, but I mean, they got Jay Ajayi. Did you really need him? He was getting up there anyway. That's probably why they let him walk to Detroit. So I don't know. I see the Eagles still a slight drop off, but not nearly as much. I think that they'll still fight for that top spot in the division, but they won't get it. Mostly just because I don't think history is going to change anytime soon. No, I mean I don't like the Eagles personally, but I mean there's no argument that they still have a solid championship contending roster, and I got them going 12-4.
It's 8:49 a.m. and the Eagles still suck. In case anyone was wondering what my screensaver's been for the last 6 years, that's what my phone tells me every time I look at it. I think the biggest thing for the Eagles is they lost Brent Selleck, their big tight end. They loved throwing to him. And they lost a couple pieces on defense. They lost Michael Kendricks. They lost Vinny Curry at defensive end. They are getting Carson Wentz back, and that is a big thing for him. He's a great quarterback, great young dude. But I don't really see him repeating last year. I'm not going to say it was a fluke. They were a good team, but the Eagles should not have won that Super Bowl. Just kind of happened. So it is what it is. I'm still not happy about it. Do you remember when Alshon Jeffrey said he can't wait to stay in Chicago and win a Super Bowl? And then he left
yeah, I do remember. Yeah, I'm still bitter about that one. I tell you what, I'll give him props, and I'm happy he got his ring, but don't do it for the teal and black. Don't do that.
You're right. But I see the Eagles performing well again this year, especially with Wentz back at the helm. I've got him going 11-5. Nick Foles, to answer your question, as Gavin said, he's not going to do anything. He's going to sit on that bench and collect his paycheck. While he's still hot, the Eagles should trade him.
Absolutely.
He doesn't play well anywhere else. He plays well in Philadelphia.
I think that's what's holding teams back from trading for him, is they've caught on that Nick Foles anywhere else is not Nick Foles. He is some other dude that shows up, because when he's in Philly, he's another quarterback.
He had a little stint where Tampa Bay,
the St. Louis Rams.
St. Louis Rams, that's right. And he was not the same guy. You can see it in his numbers. If you take his 3 wins, turn those into 3 losses, take his 6 touchdowns and then 2 interceptions and turn it, absolutely flip it. In Nick Foles' first season with the Eagles, he threw 29 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, I think, something like that. After he left, it was almost opposite. Not quite to that extent, but it was not good. And then he came back to the Eagles, and he let him do a Super Bowl and won an MVP. He plays well with Philly. That's it. I think a lot of teams see that, so I think he'll ride the bench for the rest of his career, be a great backup as long as he stays in Philly, and he'll be a below-average backup if he leaves.
He can be the greatest. He already is the greatest backup of all time. I would just take my title, collect my check, and be content. Yep. I mean,
it's time to retire, little buddy.
Yeah.
All right, so the New York Giants, they're dead last in the NFC East last year. They won 3 games, 3-13. That's not like the Eli Manning days back when we were kids growing up. But Eli Manning has declined. I feel like he is no longer in the top 10 quarterbacks, and he hasn't been since, 2004 or 15 or something like that. Anyway.
He won his last Super Bowl in 2009.
11.
11, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that was his last good season.
All right, so with Manning declining, with Odell Beckham declining, how do you guys think that the Giants are going to pair this season?
Well, it's New York. I mean, what did they go 3-13 last year?
Yep.
You got Odell Beckham still being a hothead, still smoking weed in a hotel room somewhere.
He was on a boat.
Going on a boat. Before the playoffs?
Yep.
I'm not a fan whatsoever. I tell you what, I do like their defense more than people give them credit for, and I also think that Saquon Barkley, that their second overall pick from Penn State, is going to be an absolute stud, but he's got nobody to help him. People say Odell Beckham's this stud receiver, and I got to give him credit. He's got all the talent in the world, but he ain't going to put it to use. He's gotten worse every single year he's been in the league, at least statistically speaking. And we see it on the sideline and in the end zone with his antics and social media and all this other stuff that we have to put up with. I can't imagine how Giants fans feel about that. As far as Eli Manning, yeah, he's garbage now, and I hate to say that because he was one of the greats for almost a decade. He beat Tom Brady twice. Who else can say that? Nobody. So, yeah, with that said, he's on a sharp decline. I think New York's going to look for a quarterback in the draft next year. I think this will be Manning's last year at the helm. And the Giants are looking at another 3-13 season. I mean, they didn't do anything to get better. So,
yeah, I agree with you completely. I hate OBJ.
Yep.
I also hate LBJ. It must be something with the BJs that hate people saying. LeBron and Odell, I'm not fans. Odell Beckham, crybaby. He made one good catch his rookie season, and everybody said he's a top 3 wide receiver from that point on, and he has not proven it. He's been hurt every season for at least a game. He can't stay on the field. When he is on the field, he's headbutting, kicking nets, and throwing fits, and I can't stand this dude. I can't stand to watch him play. I don't think he's a good receiver. I think he made one good catch, and he's been average since then at best. He has good games. Everybody has good games. That's the way it works. But I don't like OBJ. I don't think he helps that offense as much as he should, especially if he's not on the field.
He only played in 4 games last year.
Yeah.
That's saying something.
In that 4th game, he was out by the first quarter. So he had 3 touchdowns in that at 300 yards. That's 100 yards a game. And he struggles against good cornerbacks. If he's going against someone average or below average at the cornerback position, he'll destroy them all day. Hell, I could go out there and catch a couple passes against a below average cornerback. Hey, this dude should be torching people. With his size and his speed and his strength, he should be Julio Jones out there, and he's not. To get off OBJ, though, Eli Manning is officially old.
Yep.
04, just like Ben Roethlisberger came in. Same with Phillip Rivers. They are all getting old. And Eli has definitely dropped the hardest. We saw that last year. He finally ended his streak of games played at the starting position. They pulled someone in week 13, something like that.
Which, real quick, let me touch on that. I felt like that was disrespectful because of the season that they were having. Just let him finish the year and keep the streak. If you want to bench him going into the season, I understand. But they're going to start him, which doesn't make any sense to me. I thought that was blasphemous, and I think Ben McAdoo's a moron.
The only reason I have respect for Eli Manning is because he told him he didn't mind sitting down. If it meant winning a game, he was okay with it. And that's the only reason I like Eli. I hate the New York Giants.
Absolutely.
Can't stand them. Especially with the guys they've got. I don't like them at all. So I was really happy to see Eli have a horrible season. I think he's had a horrible season for the last 8 years now. And I'm really happy to watch him keep crumbling. I think he'll finally retire this year. He's definitely getting old. He knows it. The team knows it. They are starting to look at quarterbacks, finding someone to replace him. I think this will be his final year in a Giants uniform. He'll collect his money. He will have another bad season. The Giants are going to do awful again. I did give them, because of Saquon Barkley, I gave them one more win at 4-12.
So real quick, you guys talked about Odell Beckham's off-field issues. I want to talk about one other thing real quick. It's a big story. We're just going to kind of talk about it, touch on it, and leave it. Janoris Jenkins is facing a potential suspension, if not jail time, for aiding and abetting a murder. As most of you probably know, they found a human body stuffed in some freezer or something. So what does that mean that the Giants have to face that on top of the other issues with Eli Manning getting older and Odell Beckham not performing the way he should be? This is just another headache, right?
Well, yeah. Let me say this. This is the interesting part of the story is that it's allegedly his Jenkins' brother that did this in his own home.
Right.
So if he knew anything about it, if he aided him in any way, like you said, he will be facing jail time. Not just fines, not just suspension. Football is going to be the last thing on his mind. With that said, he's their best corner that they have. So if he's gone, that's just going to weaken the defense, and it's already been subpar over the last 3-4 seasons.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, you lose Jenkins, even if he's playing. I mean, when that's going through your head, I mean that's got to be a huge distraction for him. I don't know how he's going to go on the field and perform at a Pro Bowl level like he's capable of. But yeah, it's bad news for the New York Giants.
Yeah, it's really sad to see. Janoris Jenkins was a phenomenal player, but he's always had off-the-field issues. If Jerry Jones tells you can't play for him anymore because he thinks he got problems, then you got some problems because Jerry Jones will play anybody, man.
Right.
I really loved watching him play, though. He was outstanding. Sad to see, but he brought this on himself. So.
Right on. So moving on to the Washington Redskins, who no longer have Kirk Cousins. They're 7-9, third in NFC East. What do you think?
I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Redskins are going to have a drastic turnaround from last year. 7-9, no more. I see them going a lot better than that. They got Alex Smith now. Let's not forget Alex Smith playing in that AFC West division with Denver and San Diego when they were there, Oakland. These were good teams a couple years ago, and they still are decent teams, but not up to par with what they used to be. Alex Smith took the Chiefs to the playoffs, what was it, four straight years with Andy Reid, so... granted, they were first and second round exits, but I mean they got to the playoffs nonetheless. 11-4, 12-4, 11-5, 12-4. These are decent records. He's just not a playoff quarterback, and we've seen that time and time again. Now I think with him being in Washington, I think on the offensive side of things, he's looking a lot better with guys like Crowder, Reed, Garcon. Is Garcon still with him, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So they're looking at those three receivers. Deshaun Jackson left. I think that was a headache. I think this was addition by subtraction for Washington, even though he's a hell of a receiver. I don't want to say a head case, but he's kind of a loudmouth, and I'm kind of glad to see him off this team.
He's the original OBJ.
Yeah, exactly. I think he suffers a little bit of short man syndrome, if you ask me. But no, I got the Redskins actually coming out on top in this division this year.
Whoa! Hot takes here from Gav again, going in hard.
Go ahead, man. That's all I got to say. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Grill me for it.
I love Alex Smith. I think the dude is phenomenal. I was so sad to see him leave Andy Reid and the Chiefs. I don't know why they would do him dirty like this. I think he was so good on that team.
Let me add one more thing. I think that's why it'll add to the reason why the Redskins are going to win this. I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. He thinks that Kansas City thought he wasn't good enough, that they needed to go in a different direction, and now he's going to play like he means business. I'm just going to throw that out there.
That's the only reason I'm going to give your opinion on their record any kind of validation is because of Alex Smith. Other than that, I mean, the Redskins are still a dumpster fire. That's all there is. Since they drafted RG3 in 2012, that's all there is to it. And then they got rid of their second cornerback behind Josh Norman in that trade for Alex Smith. Their defense hasn't made any moves in the last couple years now. They've done nothing but get old or get rid of them. The offense still really isn't anything. All their receivers are so old, man. They can still play, they can still catch, but they are not as fast as they used to be. They can't jump as high as they used to.
Jordan Reed's 26.
Besides Jordan, their receivers, Jordan Reed's a tight end. Jordan Reed, a really good receiver, or tight end, but they don't throw to him as much as he should. Good news for him, Alex Smith loves tight ends.
Yeah, him and Travis Kelce had it going on.
Amen.
Going off of that real quick, Tyson, Jordan Reed only had 211 total yards last year.
Exactly my point. But with Alex Smith, I think he'll get a little bit more.
Well, Alex Smith is a hell of an upgrade from Kirk Cousins.
Absolutely.
Multiple-time Pro Bowler.
Definitely. So I see Jordan Reed having a better season, but we've seen it over the last couple of years. Alex Smith's wide receivers don't have good seasons a lot of times. They'll get yards, but they don't get touchdowns. They don't put up points. The points either come from running backs punching it in or tight ends catching them. And Washington does not have the running backs to support that. So I think their offense took a step back, even though they got Alex Smith. If they didn't take a step back, they're even.
Okay.
Even though they got Alex Smith, I think their pieces are just not working together like they should anymore. Their defense is still decent, but I think they took a step back as well. I would love to see Alex Smith do great, just not for the Redskins. So I will take the Redskins at 6-10 this year. One game worse than what they were.
Real quick on the Alex Smith deal. On his contract, he still has 5 years remaining with a 2021 player option. I know Gav's over there fuming, so I'm gonna let him talk for about the next minute.
Well, I don't want to say that I'm upset. It's just that I go by process of elimination when I look at the East Division in the NFC. It's the Eagles won it last year. They can't repeat. The Cowboys, not by any fault of their own. I feel like it's the bad luck of Jerry Jones. There's always something that goes wrong for them, and a la the Des Bryant catch against the Packers. Yeah. So I feel like something's going to go wrong for them that leaves them out. And the Giants are, let's be honest, they're garbage. They're utter garbage. So by process of elimination, I have Washington winning this division, and I had to find reasons why I could justify Washington winning the division. So I think Alex Smith is that good. I think he's a top 10 quarterback. I think he's a top 8 quarterback in this league.
I think you could throw him up there with top 5. Very possible. It's close. But
it's very close. I mean, if you want to tell me he was 6th or 7th, I wouldn't argue that at all. But I think that he's that good. I think that he can, not like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or anyone like that, but I think that he could play with less and still perform the same. I think that Josh Norman, if he can have a bounce back season on the secondary, if he can shut down the other team's best receiver, I think that they're going to be in good shape. That's why I said 12-4. I mean, that's 2 wins against the Giants. I think they'll split with the Eagles and the Cowboys. So you already got 4 wins in the division right there.
So this is going to spark some controversy. I can just feel it right now with what's going on in the last couple teams we've talked about. Go ahead, Tyson, and rank your NFC East.
Now this might sound biased, but I've got as follows: Cowboys, Eagles, Redskins, Giants.
Gav?
I've got the Redskins winning the division, tiebreaker over Philly, and then I've got the Cowboys and the Giants.
Cowboys at
there it is. I knew it was coming.
Was he for 6 extra games?
I just
as a rookie, he ran for 1,800 yards.
Listen, like I said, he's got some off the court issues he's got to deal with. If he can figure that out, I think that he'll be in good shape. Hey, look, I hope he's put it behind him. He's my favorite running back in the league right now, besides Jordan Howard, because bias. But no, I just 9-7. I don't see him improving. Maybe, like I said, maybe 10-6, but that's not going to get him in the playoffs.
I change it. I'm not going 12-4. I'm going 13-3 again for the Cowboys.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
All right, boys. NFC South. Tampa Bay leading off 5-11, dead last in the South. Last season they had the 17th best O-line, something like that. Dead last in total defense, so that's always a good start. I don't feel like they've improved much this season. Gav, what's your opinion on Tampa Bay? And one thing real quick is I'm just going to say that we got Lovie Smith, so that's a good thing.
I mean, Tampa Bay is probably the worst team in the NFL. At least coming into the season, I don't see why there's any reason why they should be less than that or more than that. Excuse me. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback for the first 3 games. When was the last time he was good? Up in Buffalo, like 4 years ago, where he was even half decent.
Wasn't he halfway decent in New York, or am I dreaming?
Until he threw 9 interceptions in a row in 2 games.
He had that wild hair, right?
Yeah, he sure did.
Looks like an offensive lineman with that hair and that beard.
Yeah, he's a Harvard guy. He's a little strange, but no, Tampa Bay. I don't see why they go 2-14, 3-13. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. If they want to win 1 game, I wouldn't be surprised. Do I think that they'll go 0-16? No, they're not Cleveland from last year. Right. They're not that bad, but they're pretty bad. And when you have the worst team in the entire NFL acquire, Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry, and you draft a guy like Baker Mayfield, and yeah, you're not going to go 0-16 again. We already talked about that on Monday. You know how we feel about the Browns. You sure as hell know how Tyson feels about the Browns.
Baker's a winner.
But getting back to Tampa Bay, I mean, they acquired Bo Allen from Philly. I mean, he's coming off a championship win, but he was a backup defensive tackle. So, I mean, how good is he really? I didn't get to see him play all that much. And then they re-signed Cameron Brate, their tight end. he's a decent player, but he's not got anyone throwing him the football. Jameis Winston is out for the first 3 games off some off the field issues that he's been struggling with since he's come into the league, since college at Florida State.
Not only that, it's been since Florida State.
Yeah. It's just they're going to start off the season 0-3, and then after that, Winston's going to come back and he's going to have to get adjusted, which will probably take another 2 or 3 weeks. So I see him starting the season 0-6, and it's not going to go up from there. So I just think that their entire team, their organization, coaching staff, front office staff, it's just not looking good. They're all garbage.
I completely agree. And they're in another tough division that every year someone new wins. And last year they had 3 teams in this division make the playoffs. They're in a very good division, very competitive division. They are going to get smacked, and they're going to get smacked hard.
Last year was the South. The year before that,
this is the South.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. Why did I think they were in the West? Why did I think they were in the West? I think I got Tampa Bay mixed up with Arizona for some reason. Excuse me. Go ahead.
But
it's 9:00 in the morning. Leave me alone.
Right. But you're absolutely right. They were 5-11 last year with Jameis. Take him out for 3 more games, 3 of those wins. They're now 2-14, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. That's actually what I picked them going this year was 2-14. They have the worst defense in the league by a landslide. Awful. They've actually got some really good pieces on that defensive side. Bo Allen was a good signing, another big defensive tackle, but he's not a starter. He's not that caliber player. He's not going to make a major turnaround for him. But the Bucs are going to start awful. I think you nailed it. 0-6 to start with. Maybe they get lucky in one when Jameis comes back, adds a little spark to something. But I just don't really see it happening. That's all I'd say is I think the Bucs are going to be bad.
Let me say one thing. I don't want to knock Mike Evans. He is a stud receiver, but if you want to tell me anyone else on that Tampa Bay squad that at his caliber, you can't give me one. Revis retired, and he was there a couple years ago when he was in the twilight years. If Mike Evans, when his contract is up in a couple years, he needs to get out while he can, because Tampa Bay they're on the downfall, and they've been that way since they won the Super Bowl back in 2002 or something like that.
2003.
Or there you go. So
2002. You're right. Too.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
Anyway, go ahead.
So real quick, we got about 30 seconds left on the Bucs. I want to talk about Winston. With those off-field issues he's had since Florida State, and this incident, if you don't know about it, take a look at it, look it up, look into it, see what your opinion is on it. It's a pretty big acquisition going on right now, and whether he did it, it's terrible. He's a bad human being, in my opinion. I can't stand him. What does this mean for the Bucs organization? Because Jameis Winston, Jim, whatever his name is putting technically the face of your organization. So you have this guy as the face of your organization on a declining Tampa Bay Bucs team, or not even a declining, just a bad one. So what does this mean for the front office? Are they going to have to get rid of him, try to find somebody in the draft, because he's not a bad quarterback.
He's not bad, but he's not worth the headache. And This just shows you that Tampa Bay is not good at drafting quarterbacks. They had Josh Freeman. They went and signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. They had Mike Glennon. They got Jameis Winston now. They haven't had a solid quarterback since Garcia? It's been a long time. I couldn't name you a decent Tampa Bay quarterback for the past decade.
Hasn't been one.
Yeah. So no, I don't blame him at all, Tyson.
They'll always have free crab legs. Other than that, I've never liked Jameis Winston. I think the dude's a punk.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He just can't grow up.
Yeah. He's still stuck. Yeah. That's exactly it. He can't grow up, and I don't think he will until he's 35 and time to retire.
He'll retire before that.
Yeah, he might bounce around a couple more teams, but I really hope Tampa Bay doesn't re-sign him when his contract is finally up, especially because he's going to lead the worst team in the league, and there's nothing he can do about it. But I don't like Jameis Winston. I don't think the Bucs are going to do well with him. I just don't really see it ending well for anybody in this situation. I hope he can figure himself out, because he is a decent quarterback. So if he can get his stuff figured out and grow up and play like a man and fix his off-the-field stuff, good for him. He's a good quarterback. It'd be great to see him do great things, but I just don't think he will.
All right, so the Atlanta Falcons, they're third in the NFC South at 10-6. I feel like that's a pretty decent record for Atlanta.
That's a great record.
They're not bad.
No.
Gav, what do you think about Atlanta?
Atlanta, I'll tell you what, they're the best team that didn't win their division last year, and I think that's going to repeat itself this year, although I think that they'll go ahead and take the crown. Their offensive line was ranked second best, arguably the best in the entire league. Used to be Dallas. Dallas lost Doug Free to retirement, so they got a hole to fill there. Ninth best in defense last year, eighth in total offense. This is a team that, keep in mind, went top 10 in both total offense and defense and ended up with the 6th seed. So that tells you how tough this division is. Notable acquisitions, they got Garrison Smith, a defensive tackle from the Seahawks, and then they got cornerback Tyson Graham from the Colts. I think he was probably their number 2 or number 3 corner. Atlanta's already got guys like Tyler Alford and Desmond Trufant, so if they want to go ahead and shove him in the rotation when they run their nickel and dime package, I don't see why that would be an issue. He's a decent player. Garrison Smith on the defensive side, this is a guy that can come in for a couple snaps every series and plug the middle, go after the quarterback. There's part of that Legion of Boom up there era in Seattle. This was something that caught me off guard is we saw the 49ers paid Jimmy Garoppolo big-time money to stay in San Francisco, and he was the highest-paid quarterback in the league, highest-paid player in the league. The Falcons said, no, we're going to one-up you. They signed Matt Ryan to a 5-year, $150 million extension.
Yikes.
Listen, and Matt Ryan's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong. He took him to the Super Bowl. He's been in the playoffs multiple times. He's been the face of this franchise for a long time, him and Julio Jones. But, and let me say but, $150 million for Matty Ice, I just don't know.
Yikes.
I just don't know. That's a lot of money. You got to think, are they going to be able to sustain other pieces around him over these next 5 years?
Matt Ryan is a great regular season quarterback. Besides the year he took him to the Super Bowl and absolutely blew it, he's lost first round every year. He is a fantastic regular season quarterback, especially throwing to Julio Jones. They are a great duo to watch. So fun.
Which, real quick, I'm happy to see him come back to training camp yesterday. That was great news for Atlanta.
Yeah, what about that? They signed Julio Jones to a contract extension, and he's got 3 years left on his contract already. They paid him a buttload of money to stay.
They should, too.
They should, but he had 3 years left on his contract. What's going to stop other players from coming saying, hey, I've got 2 years left. I want an extension, too. I want a bunch of money.
And Julio can say, be the best receiver in football. Come back to me.
Okay,
I mean,
arguable for sure.
Yeah.
He does have that over a lot of people, but I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out all around the league for a bunch of different players over the next couple of years. But back to it, Matt Ryan is a great quarterback. I don't think they overpaid for him. I think he's the best option they're going to have for the next upcoming several years, so you might as well pay him. Make him stay, make him want to be there. Hopefully he can win you some games. You saw him take him to the Super Bowl once. Maybe he can do it again. The NFC is absolutely loaded. There are so many good teams in this conference.
And there's so many good teams that aren't going to make the playoffs.
Yep. That's the best thing about the NFC is it's competitive.
Absolutely.
The AFC, we know it's going to be the Steelers or the Patriots almost every year. The Colts when they were good, whatever. But yeah, Matt Ryan, good quarterback, regular season for sure. I'd like to see him improve his postseason game, handling the pressure a little bit better. But I don't think they overpaid. I think Atlanta, like you said, best team in football that got a 6th seed ever. It's insane. 9th in defense, 8th in offense. I think they're one of like 2 teams that had top 10 ratings in both. So the team itself is just great, but they're in a tough division with New Orleans and Carolina around them.
Absolutely, and I think an issue with Atlanta was losing Taylor Gabriel to Chicago this year. He was a stud in the slot for them. He's a speedster. He can get behind the defense, run the go routes, and just beat the defense over the top. I think that they'll still be solid. They got Mohamed Sanu. They've got can't remember their tight end's name. Begins with an H. I can't remember.
Just blank.
Yeah, it's blanking on me. But he's a stud too. I mean, they're getting Julio back, and they got Coleman and Freeman in the backfield. So that duo's still kicking strong. Coleman underrated out of the backfield too, catching the balls. He's pretty good, and we know that Atlanta likes to run the spread, and the spread seems to work a lot better in the NFC as well. If you watch teams. I know that San Francisco's starting to get into it because of Jimmy G. Atlanta runs it great. Jared Goff and the Rams is another one. But no, I think Atlanta will come out on top in this division. It'll be close, but I got them going 11-5. I think that they'll win a couple games this year that they didn't win last year. And yeah, they're going to come out on top. And like I said, it's going to be close. The Panthers, Saints, we'll get to them. I just think they're a little bit better than those two teams this upcoming year.
I've got Atlanta going 11-5 as well. I think that spread offense would work a little bit better if you had a better number 2 wide receiver than Mohamed Sanu.
Yeah,
he's good. He's a good guy. But on his good days, he'll catch 5 balls for 120 yards. On his bad days, he'll catch 1 ball for 2 yards. And then he's got up and down moments for sure. If they could get another wide receiver to pair up with Julio Jones, they would be unstoppable. And they're definitely going to need another slot to replace Gabriel. That's a big hole to fill. They need another young speedster guy that they can throw there to swing around where they need him. So I'm interested to see how that spread will work out for him this year, but I've still got him winning, going 11-5.
So we're going to move on a little bit here. You guys touched on it. One of the better teams in the South, the Carolina Panthers, behind Cam Newton and company. Last season, they finished 11-5, second, obviously behind the Saints. 19th total in defense, and they also had the ranked 10th in O-line in the league last year. So that's saying something. They got an O-line that can protect Cam Newton, even though he's obviously a big guy. What is he, like 6'4", 6'5", something like that?
6'5", 260.
So that's huge for a quarterback.
Big guy.
That's a unit. So how do you think Cam Newton and company are going to do this season?
Cam Newton, I love his game. I like mobile quarterbacks that can sling the football, but I don't like his attitude. I never have. He thinks that he is it, and let me tell you, Cam, you're not it. You're a great player, but you're not the best. And believe me, you have to have confidence to play this game, but you don't need to throw it in other people's faces. Okay, I love what he does for the kids. I love what he does for NFL Play 60. I love how much time he puts into charities and stuff like that. But on the field, he needs to fix his antics. It's similar to the OBJ situation, just not quite at that level. Mm-hmm. But nothing irritates me more than a guy that has those kind of antics, that has that kind of attitude, that can't back it up. Because when he went to the Super Bowl, I didn't.
Whoa.
Oh, go ahead.
He can back it up.
Right.
He can definitely.
That's what I'm saying. When he went to the Super Bowl, I had no problem with it. But when your team goes 5-11, 6-10, that's not going to cut it for me.
But they're 11-5 last year.
Right. I'm talking about.
Still back it
I'm talking about the year before that.
Okay. All right.
They had a bounce back year last year. I'm not knocking that, but a big part of that was their 7th overall defense. On that side of the ball, losing Josh Norman, I felt like that was addition by subtraction, because when he went to Washington, he wasn't the same player. Do I think he's the best corner in the game? I think it's arguable. But I don't think he is. This is a team that acquired guys like Ross Cockrell from New York Giants. He's a cornerback. He's a stud. Young guy, definitely has a potential to fit into that probably second cornerback role. Denoris Searcy from Tennessee, he was a great safety. He was probably the best player in that secondary on that Tennessee team. And then Jarius Wright from Minnesota, young guy, probably not going to play all that much, but he's another receiver for Cam to throw to after losing. They lost Benjamin to Buffalo last year.
Yep. And
then Dontari Poe. This is a guy from Atlanta. He was a big part of that top 10 defense in Atlanta. He's definitely going to fit right in on that Carolina D-line. Julius Peppers needs a replacement. He's 38, going on 39 years old. He probably needs to hang him up after this year. And then they also retained kicker Graham Gano. Been an average kicker, but he's been with Carolina for a while. I know that this is his second stint with the team, but he's been there a while. They need him. I don't really have anything else to say on Carolina. I see him going about 10-6, 9-7, somewhere around that mark.
I've got close. I've got 9-7 for Carolina this year. I think if you want to talk about a big pickup, we're talking a literal big pickup truck in Dontari Poe. Dude is a stud. Got him from Atlanta. I can't believe he left there. This dude is a Mack truck. He takes up so much space. This is one of my favorite defensive tackles to watch. I want to say he's like 6'3" and 360 pounds or something. Dude is huge, and he can move. He's got some quick feet. He's super fun dude to watch. Definitely bolsters their defense, who's already stout. You got him followed by Luke Kuechly right behind him. That's mean, nasty combo right there in the middle.
Thomas Davis as well.
Yeah, and
he's
Thomas
coming
Davis
back
next to Luke Kuechly. They've got a good center. Good luck running on the Panthers. But that being said, I don't see the Panthers' offense playing as well as they should. They lost some receivers. They haven't really got anybody to replace them. I really like Christian McCaffrey at the running back.
Absolutely.
Playing slot. One of my favorite players when he was playing college.
He was at Stanford?
Yep. And I love Cam Newton. I don't like cocky players, and I love Cam Newton. I love watching him play. I like his energy. I like his cockiness. I like his antics on the field. I think it's all with purpose. I think he gets under people's skin. And you can see that in the comments after and before the game, people saying, oh, he shouldn't do this. And Cam says, well, you should have stopped me. Superman. I love Cam Newton, love watching him play, but I think he takes way too many hits. For a top 10 line, he gets hit a lot, man. So I honestly think I wouldn't wish this on him at all. But I think Cam Newton's going to get hurt, and I think that's the reason they're going to go 9-7.
Well, as he gets older, he's not going to be able to take these shots anymore,
Right.
like Peyton Manning, because when he was taking some of them shots, he had that neck issue. But one thing on Cam, real quick, the only time I didn't like him was in the Super Bowl against Denver, when he was kind of acting up a little bit.
And
with
he
his
didn't
field
jump
exit.
on the football.
And he didn't jump on the football. And not only that, Peyton Manning was just like, all right, little kid, I'm going to show you what's up. So Peyton Manning showed him what's up.
Sheriff's in town.
That's right.
Absolutely.
But after going off of that, I still think Cam Newton's one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
I don't think he's top 10.
I'm not saying top 10, maybe top 15. But
I would say top half, yeah, but he's not in my top 10. Listen, mobile quarterbacks don't last in this league unless your name's Michael Vick, and even then, you're still.
What are you talking about? RG3 still around?
Who's he backing up now in Baltimore? Is he third string in Baltimore
Yeah.
now? Jeez, what happened to him? Real quick.
The Derrick Rose treatment.
I need to touch on this because I just remembered Austin Hooper was the guy from Atlanta that I'm forgetting. He's probably going to be fourth string. He's going to be really good. And this just in on from Bleacher Report, Atlanta just inked left tackle Jake Matthews, brother of Clay Matthews for the Packers, inked him to a 5-year, $75 million deal. That's a lot of money for an offensive lineman.
yeah, it is.
But well deserved. He's one of the best, if not the best, left tackle in the game. Getting back to Carolina, let me say one more thing. I do expect that defense to be really good. All right. If there's one thing that I can say about them is I do like their defense. Getting back to addition by subtraction on Josh Norman a couple years ago. Thomas Davis was hurt last year. Clearly was hurt last year for some games. If that defense can stay together, they're going to be stout. But no, like you said, 9-7 I think is solid. One last thing about Cam, I don't like it when he does his antics or whatever, acts the way he acts. He's cocky, right? I don't mind the Superman. Superman's great. I love that. But it's the when he dishes that out on other people, and then when other people dish it out on him when he loses. His skin is so soft, and it really bugs me for him being that big of a guy. It reminds me a lot of Dwight Howard. And I really don't like that.
Okay,
I'll take that.
We're done.
100%
Really don't like
We're
that.
moving on.
One last
You want
comment.
to talk about Superman?
If you want a fun player to watch Carolina Panthers games and pay attention to Luke Kuechly,
Absolutely.
middle linebacker. for the
Best
Panthers.
middle linebacker in the game.
Watch him. He
Yeah.
will be in on every play. If he doesn't make the tackle, he will be within a step. Great player.
Him and Thomas Davis remind me a lot of Lance Briggs, Urlacher in the Chicago days.
Faster.
Yes, no, absolutely.
So moving on, the last team in the South, but who finished first at 11-5, your New Orleans Saints with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. I feel like they could have made a better run in the playoffs.
They should have. They got screwed.
That snafu with Lattimore against the Vikings. But
Rookie mistake.
what do you think? What do you think about the Saints?
I tell you what, nothing made me more salty than watching that game. Mostly because I'm a Bears fan and I hate to see the Vikings do well. But Lattimore missing that tackle, and then because I think the Saints could have beat the Eagles. Call me crazy, but I think playoff Drew Brees is a different animal, and I think that he definitely could have beat Nick Foles. But then again, Nick Foles beat Tom Brady. But then again, I think Drew Brees is better than Tom Brady. But that's an argument for a different day. Let's talk about New Orleans. I think their coach Sean Payton, he's one of the better head coaches in this league. He's had a couple issues in the past with the bounty system that they had going on a few years ago.
Yeah, he's putting,
But I think we look past that. We've seen him in the
paychecks
Super Bowl against
Hit Brett
Indianapolis.
Favre's knees. Let's see that old guy go down.
We've seen him in the Super Bowl against Indianapolis, and Peyton Manning, GOAT to me. Tyson, I know you agree.
Yep.
Yeah, that onside kick coming out of halftime, one of the ballsiest things I've ever seen in this game. He definitely has the cojones to pull off some things that other coaches wouldn't do. He's got my respect. I think he's a top tier coach. Drew Brees, to me, top 3 quarterback in the league. I know you'll probably have something to say about that. His receivers, I can't remember that they had a rookie last year that was really good, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. Thompson was his last name.
Keenan. No,
not Keenan Thompson. That's the dude on Nickelodeon.
No, Keenan Thompson.
Or Saturday Night
for Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen for Los Angeles Chargers. Yeah. No, I can't remember his first name, but Thompson, he was a rookie last year. He was an absolute stud. Led the team in receiving yards and touchdown receptions. Drew Brees found him pretty much every single time down the field, at least a couple times during the game. And that duo alone, I think, can carry that offense. I know they've got other guys because they seem to just pair up anybody around Drew Brees, and he seems to do well. But they had Sean Lattimore, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and they had Alvin Kamara on the other side, Offensive Rookie of the Year. These two guys are going to be studs on opposite sides of the ball, and they're going to be looking really good next year. Kamara is just going to keep improving. I think Drew Brees' Super Bowl window is closing, though. I think he's going to start to be on the decline here soon. I think, 36, 37 years old? Yeah. So unless he wants to, start on that TB12 diet, then we'll have to see what he's got left. But I got the Saints going 9-7, finishing behind Carolina.
I don't agree with everything you said, but the record, you got to the right spot somehow. I got New Orleans going 9-7. I'm very love-hate with Drew Brees. I would love to throw him in the top 3 quarterbacks, considering he throws for at least 4,000 yards every year.
Well, he's going to break the record next year.
And somehow goes 9-7 every year. Except for last year. Yeah, he's had a couple better years, but almost every year he goes like 9-7-ish. Which I don't understand how dude can throw for 4,000 yards and still lose games.
The defense is trash.
Yeah, so I really want to say he's the best quarterback, but then again, he loses games. But at the same time, you can't really blame him because his team's terrible. But his team wasn't terrible last year. The defense was actually decent. And, I mean, they only lost 5 games last year. I'll give that to them. So I'm very love-hate with Drew Brees. It's hard for me to say that he's top 3, but it's hard for me to say that he's not. Because put him in the 2-minute drill, I need a touchdown with 53 seconds and we're on our own 4-yard line. Yeah, give me Drew Brees. That dude's great. But I don't know. It's weird for me with him, but I think he's getting older. I think this might be the first season he doesn't pass for 4,000 yards in a long time.
Sorry, having a remembrance here. Michael Thomas. That's his name. Not Thompson, Michael Thomas. Okay.
And I would love to see their defense do as great as they did last year, but I don't think it will. And their offense, I definitely see regressing a little bit. I think Michael Thomas is great. They've got a couple really good fast receivers, and they've got Alvin Kamara. But I don't want to say Alvin Kamara was a fluke, but I don't think he's going to have as good of a season. It's his sophomore year, sophomore slump. We generally see that with a lot of really good players their first year.
Running backs especially. So yes. I'll go ahead and give you that, but I still think he'll be on par with last year at least.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely see that. But that being said, 9-7, what I got New Orleans at.
So go ahead and rank the South, boys.
Real quick, I want to touch on one more thing. They did sign Cameron Meredith from the Bears. He was their third-string receiver. So I think if he's Drew Brees' third-string receiver, absolutely. So I think that he'll be at least another weapon at Drew Brees' disposal.
All right, so now go ahead and rank the South, Tyson.
Atlanta 11-5, New Orleans and Carolina at 9-7. New Orleans takes the tiebreaker. Tampa Bay 2-14.
I think we were almost identical. I had the Atlanta Falcons at 11-5. I got the Panthers winning the tiebreaker over the Saints at 9-7, and then I have the Bucks 3-13. So pretty close. Yep. I'm probably giving them too much credit.
Yep.
All right, moving on. San Francisco 49ers 6-10 last year, but them 6 games came when Jimmy G came. So that's saying something about how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play this season, I feel like. Like Gavin said, signed the biggest deal this offseason until Atlanta went ahead and took that with Matt Ryan, and they just said, forget you, Jimmy G. I'm a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan. I really like him a lot. But anyway, they're 6-10, dead last in the NFC West last year. Gav, do you think that's going to change at all?
Absolutely. Jimmy G, if you're not a fan, you need to jump on the hype train while you can. This guy is 7-0 when starting for 2 separate teams. You can't tell me this guy is not a stud. The one thing – go ahead, Tyson.
7-0, you might say some of those wins are with the Patriots. Yes, but some of those wins are with the 49ers. That's saying something.
6 out of the 7.
6 of the 7. Yeah, go ahead and try and trash on that. undefeated.
Yeah, I love Jimmy G. I think it's a unanimous decision here.
Yes.
We all love Garoppolo, but this offensive line is ranked 20th overall in the NFL. So that's a problem. I hope he doesn't mind getting hit because this is not the Patriots' offensive line.
Still young.
Absolutely no. He's somewhat mobile, and I'll give him that. But his defense, Jimmy G can hold his own on the offensive side. He was 12th. The team was 12th overall in offense last year, and Jimmy G only played 6 games.
Yep.
So that should tell you something right there, that he boosted them out of the dumpster of the NFL all the way up to almost top 10. Their defense ranked 24th overall. They did sign Richard Sherman.
Yep.
Now, if he can come back and be, I would say, even 75% of what he was in Seattle for this Niners team, I think they'll be in great shape because they struggle at the cornerback position. And then they also signed Jerick McKinnon, the backup running back from Minnesota. This is a guy who's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. He can run the ball for you, but I would much rather him run the spread and put him in the flat, maybe give him a couple wheel routes, run the goes. He's really good at that. Like you said, Jimmy G, $137.5 million, deserved every penny of it. This is a guy that's he was going to be the successor to Tom Brady. So that's what we're working with right now. My question is, and what a lot of people online and articles that I've read have asked, is, Tyson, do the 49ers have enough to not only make the playoffs, but maybe make the championship game and have a shot at the Super Bowl?
No. But they're pretty close. I think the 49ers are in a really good shape this year. Jimmy G came in, they were 0-10, ended up 6-10. I think with him, they flipped that. I think they go 10-6 this year. Which is very good, especially for that division, who's been notoriously good for the last several years. But I've got San Francisco going 10-6 this year, just because I think Jimmy G's going to win his first 5, something crazy like that. Kick the streak up to like 13 games, 12 games straight undefeated. But eventually it will end. And when it ends, he'll kind of even out. I think he'll have an above average season. He'll play great. They lost Carlos Hyde at running back, who was a part of that offense. Not a big part, not a small part, but he was definitely part of it. Part that got him to 12th best. So he was a big part that they lost. I don't think they lost much in the receiver corps, so that's still all right. Jimmy G's familiar with what he's got besides Carlos gone. Richard Sherman, one of the only other cocky players in the league that I like. Michael Crabtree's a mediocre receiver.
And he ain't got nothing on him.
Yeah.
Don't put Crabtree on me.
I think his experience definitely helps out a little bit. The defense, they definitely needed to improve their defense. They got a linebacker in the draft. So I think they made some steps, but I don't think they have a championship caliber team yet, just because they haven't made enough steps on the defensive end. Offensively, I think they're going to be great this year. I don't think they'll have any problem scoring points, but keeping points off the board, I don't know if they'll be able to outscore some teams. So I'll take San Francisco at 10-6. I've also got them taking the second wild card spot in the playoffs this year.
Real quick, I want to add on to that. You said their defense would hold them back, right? They're going to be a liability. They haven't done enough.
Right.
The Patriots had I think the 6th or 7th worst defense in the entire NFL, and they went to the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady.
So you don't think Jimmy Garoppolo can do that?
I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying he's not Tom Brady yet.
All right, fair enough. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
One thing on Jimmy G, we've been talking about off-field issues with Winston, with Jenkins out of New York. This one's kind of funny, at least. It's not near as messed up. Jimmy Garoppolo went out on a date a couple weeks ago with an adult film star. So, if you're waking up, you're the 49ers GM, Gavin. You're waking up and you see that. What's the first thing that runs through your mind?
Did I just see what I just saw? I mean, I'm not one to tell somebody what they can and cannot do, but I'd definitely be giving them a phone call, at least a text message.
To me, it's not something that you want your franchise quarterback just signed a $137 million deal to be doing.
Oh, that's probably why probably why she's talking to him, is because he's making $137 million. But man, you know what, dude? He's 26 years old. He's young, and you know what? I mean, there's no arguing. I mean, he's a good-looking dude, so I mean, he can do whatever the heck he wants.
There could be a lot worse things he could be doing. So I mean,
absolutely. If you're going to tell me that he's dating an
adult
film star, that's what we're going to call it. You know what? Go for it, man. I mean, you only live once, so if the opportunity arises and that's what you want to do, go for it.
Good for him. I wouldn't do it, but good for him, man. Go for it.
All right, so we're going to move on to the Arizona Cardinals. Last year they were 8-8 in the NFC, and they were third. What do you think? Carson Palmer's now gone, Gavin. So.
Yeah, they've brought in Sam Bradford, which, wow, I don't agree with that.
Who'd they draft?
Josh Rosen from UCLA, right. And I'm really high on that guy. How he dropped to 10th. Whew! Man, this is the guy who we thought was either going to be the first or second quarterback taken off the board, and
well, obviously the first was Baker.
Well, I thought that was questionable. Cleveland could have traded the pick. There was talk of them trading the pick, but we knew 2 weeks going into it that Baker was their guy at least.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but this is a guy who we thought the Giants might take Rosen to surpass Manning. The Jets might take him to be their franchise quarterback. The Bills might take him over Josh Allen. This dropped all the way to 10th in the draft. He's definitely going to have that chip on his shoulder if and when he gets a start. I believe Sam Bradford's been named the starter for week 1. Yep. How long is that going to take for them to hand the reins over to Josh Rosen? Not very long. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Whoa, hating on Sammy.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. In Minnesota, I'm not going to say that he wasn't a decent quarterback, but when you got that defense carrying you, Arizona doesn't have that defense. Yes, they're good. They're very good, but they're not top 10. And when Minnesota had the best. So I would much rather see Josh Rosen start his career off throwing to a guy like Larry Fitzgerald than sitting an entire year out, because this might be his last year.
Yeah, Larry will make him look better too.
Absolutely. Well, Larry is, he is one of the greats.
Right up there with
He's one of the greats. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to be one of the best receivers to never win it all. Larry last year, 109 receptions, which continued the streak of at least 100 receptions in back-to-back years. I don't know what he's up to now, 8, 9, or 10, whatever it is.
Yep.
Over 1,000 yards, almost 11 yards per catch, only 6 touchdowns. This is what has to change, and this is what the Cardinals struggled with last year with Palmer, is not being able to get the ball in the end zone. If they can figure out how to do that, they're going to be in good shape. I think Rosen is a guy that can do that, but I also think he's a guy that's going to have to learn. I think Bradford's a guy that he can learn from because he's been a journeyman, but he's also been a decent quarterback. We forget about him at St. Louis. He was actually decent until he tore up his ACL, or both his ACLs. Yeah, that's really all I got on it. I'm sad to see Carson Palmer go. I know he had a lot of issues. He was still one of my favorite quarterbacks, even though he wasn't very good. I love to watch him. He's a great guy. I remember him at Cincinnati, and that's kind of how I want to remember him as. But yeah, Arizona, man, I got him going. I got him going 5-11.
I've got him doing a little bit better than that, and I'll tell you how Josh Rosen dropped to 10th. Like your boy, Sammy Darnold, he's a loser.
Jeez.
He's got no killer instinct. He's soft, man. He plays like a fish.
For Christ's sake, Tyson.
Sam Bradford, they are so lucky they went out and got this guy.
Oh, my Lord.
Sam Bradford, since he's been in Oklahoma, has always been an above-average quarterback.
Yeah.
Dude knows how to play. Boomer Sooner, man. They know how to grow football players, and they got Sam Bradford right.
So Peyton Manning had killer instinct? That's one of the nicest dudes in the entire league
on the
ever.
football field, I think he did.
Ever.
Off the field, he was the nicest dude you ever meet. You meet him on the football field, and he's throwing that football through your face.
No, he's not. He's offering you a
to
Papa
get
John's
in the end
pizza
zone.
at a record price.
And you know what? I'll take that. But even if he does play, Larry Fitzgerald is getting older. Like we said, this might be his last season. He might go 6 more. Who knows? And if he does go 6 more, he's still going to catch 8 touchdowns and 1,200 yards just because he's Larry Fitzgerald. We'll see what happens with that. I can't understand. I will never understand how they let a guy like the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu go. One of the greatest players on the defensive side of the ball at this time. He's everywhere. He's incredibly fast, makes all the right plays, all the right moves in all the right places. Yes, I just quoted that song. And they also had their head coach retire, Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians wasn't the greatest head coach ever, but it was someone they were familiar with and something they could have taken throughout the next couple seasons, especially. But it is good that with Josh Rosen coming in, they'll have a new head coach that he'll get familiar with and know from day one, instead of losing Arians a year or two from now. So if Rosen does play, he'll play better for a new head coach than he would for Arians, I think. But they've re-signed Christian Kirk to a 4-year deal, fast guy out of A&M. Like to see him return some kicks this year. But other than that, I just don't see Arizona doing great, but I still think they'll do decent in this division. I think this whole division is going to do okay. So I took Arizona at 9-7.
Winning record?
Yeah. They got Sam Bradford, man.
Yeah, they got Sam Bradford. That's why I'm saying winning record?
Yeah.
God.
I just told you.
Sam
Bradford
right.
and Larry Fitzgerald.
All right.
And they get the running back back.
All right. Well, he's a stud.
David Johnson.
He is a stud.
That is the main reason I gave him away.
You know what? I don't know about 9 games. I'll give it to you just because of David. I'll give you that.
There you go.
All right, guys, we're going to move on to the Seahawks. 9-7 in the West, finished second. Russell Wilson, in my opinion, which you can take it with a grain of salt on the NFL, is one of the most, if not the most, underrated quarterback in the league. Go ahead.
It's because his team sucks.
I don't care if.
I mean, that's all it is. His offensive line is terrible, 5th worst in the entire
gets
league.
hit like batting practice every game.
You see him scrambling back there, fighting for his life every single time he snaps the ball. Every single time he drops back in the pocket. It's not pretty to watch, but somehow he finds a way to make plays, and that's why I like him. I don't like the fact that he's so disengaged from his teammates, and we've seen that over the years. He needs to be more of a team player. That I don't like him for. But with that said, Wilson, I mean, he's a guy that doesn't miss games either. You know, he plays hurt, he plays through adversity, he plays through injury. Last year, threw for almost 4,000 yards, total yards, so running and passing almost 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's stats of a quarterback whose team should have made the playoffs, and they didn't. So that should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about Seattle. And then on top of that, they traded away over half their roster in the offseason. Let guys walk, traded them to other teams. They
lost Graham, Sherman.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. And they lost almost their entire starting 4 on the defensive line. Cliff Averill retired. Chancellor retired. There's another guy
they're getting ready to lose Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas is in a holdout right now with them. This team is finally hit the reset button. I think Pete Carroll needs to go. They need to start a new regime there in Seattle. This team is going to be bad. They're going to be very bad. I think the only reason they win even 4 games this year is because of Russell Wilson. I have them going 4-12 just because they have nothing left. I mean, this roster is completely depleted, and Wilson's going to find out sooner rather than later that he needs to move, or he needs to demand some help immediately.
Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I was a little generous. I originally jotted down 8-8. I thought everybody in this division would do well. Like I said, I'm a little generous with that. I actually think they're going to go 5-11, 6-10.
They signed Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, that's how you know they're hurt. But Brandon Marshall, Russell Wilson will finally have someone to throw to. He hasn't had anyone to throw to in years, and he's still throwing for 3,000 yards, almost 4,000 yards, and 34 touchdowns. Brandon Marshall's the first true number 1 receiver, even though he's getting old, and he's not the number 1 he used to be. It's the first true number 1 receiver he's had.
Seahawks need to bring T.O. back.
Yeah.
Just sign Terrell Owens.
Agreed. But they lost their whole defense. They gutted the roster. Pete Carroll needs to go. They had a good run. As Pat McAfee would say, you got to respect the hell out of a good run. And I respect it, but that run's over. And I think they need to accept that and hit that reset button. So I put the Seahawks at 8-8, but I could very easily see them 5-11, 4-12.
Yeah, one more thing I want to say. This is a team who last year, with their defense, with their players that they didn't get rid of yet, still only managed to muster up 1 rushing touchdown. 1 rushing touchdown in 16 games.
Worst running backs in the league. The 2 or 3 of them that they had running couldn't do anything.
No, and the 1 touchdown they did get was a 40-yard busted run. So, I mean, that tells you about their running backs. That tells you about their offensive line. I'm not a fan of this team. They're going to suck.
So, all right, guys. We're going to save this one for last, and I'm kind of glad we did because I'm a big fan of the Los Angeles Rams. I want to lead it off with this, Tyson. I'm going to have you talk about this first. Todd Gurley went out and got paid, man. He's almost getting $60 million 5 years, and he got
$45 million guaranteed.
With $45 million guarantees, that's like a $20 million signing bonus. That dude went out and got paid. Now LA's being smart about this. For one fact, they realize Todd Gurley's the best in the league. So they went ahead.
Arguable.
They went ahead and they locked him up. They got him. He's secured. He ain't going anywhere. And he's going to put together better seasons than what he had and good, decent seasons still to come. So with them locking Gurley up, and they still have one of the lowest payrolls in the league because they have all of these – everybody's on rookie contracts. So how do you think Gurley and Goff and all of them are going to do in L.A. this year with the Rams?
They were 13-3 last year, or
11-5.
11-5. 11-5. I've got them 13-3 this year. I think they'll take the top seed in the NFC. I think they'll lead the charge. I think they've got a good shot at beating just about anybody in this league. St. Louis is outstanding.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
I
do it all the time too.
I'm so stuck. I'm sad they left still. One of my favorite teams to watch, even when they had Jeff Fisher, even when they were 8-8, 7-9 every year. Loved them. Even when they had Sam Bradford. St. Louis, they are finally pulling it together, and I couldn't be more happy. This is one of the most fun teams to watch. If they had a hole anywhere, they filled it. If you had any questions, don't. They went out and paid Todd Gurley because he's out here running like a man, not a girly. This dude he's insane. Arguably the best running back in the league. You could definitely throw him up there with Le'Veon. I think Le'Veon still holds that title. He's been doing it a couple of years longer. But Todd Gurley isn't out games throughout the year. He doesn't get suspended. He doesn't get hurt as often as Le'Veon does.
That's why I think he's the best.
Absolutely deserves to get paid all that money. For a running back, that's insane. Buku bucks. And he deserves it. He's good for 200 yards a game just like Le'Veon is, but he's in it for 16 games instead of 12 or 14.
This is something we need to touch on, though. He's also running behind a top 10 offensive line. 6th overall last year. So that it kind of reminds you of the Cowboys and Zeke Elliott a little bit, although Zeke did miss some games.
I would compare him more to DeMarco Murray.
Yeah. Well, and he did retire, so I mean he could be the next. It could be the next big thing when it comes to running backs.
The difference is I think he'll perform after he leaves the Rams, unlike DeMarco did with the Titans.
Fair enough. Their offense, 10th overall, so they have a top 10 offense with Jared Goff and those stud receivers that they got. They also got Brandon Cooks from the Patriots.
Yep. That's
a big deal. We saw what Cooks was able to do before he went down with Tom Brady up there in New England. This was the question that everyone had with the Rams going in the offseason. They had the 19th overall defense last year. And boy, did they go out and bolster that roster with Ndamukong Suh from the Miami Dolphins, Sam Shields from the Green Bay Packers, Aqib Talib from the Denver Broncos, and Marcus Peters from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they might have gone from worst to first here next year. Their secondary, there's no one even close in the league. If they can make this work, if the chemistry is there, there's absolutely no one in the league that can come close to this. You put Ndamukong Suh alongside Aaron Donald, that's a scary dynamic duo on the front line.
They already had the best defensive line in the league, hands down, no questions asked. With Aaron Donald filling up that front, hands down, they had the best defensive line, and they strengthened it, which is hard to do.
Absolutely. And this is coming from a guy who I watched Ndamukong Suh play at Detroit. I watched him in Miami. I'm not a fan whatsoever.
I hate him.
Not a fan
He's
whatsoever.
So dirty.
If it was up to me, I wouldn't even have him in the league with as much crap as he's pulled.
Yep.
But there's no denying his talent. And if I'm looking at this from an analytical standpoint, this guy is a monster. And like I said, you put him up against, you put him alongside Aaron Donald, this Rams defense is looking to be probably something special. One of the best ones we've ever seen, if I'm being blunt about it. When it comes to the offensive side of things, Jared Goff, decent quarterback last year. Pretty decent quarterback last year. I'd say top 15 at least. I think it's a guy with Brandon Cooks, with they still have Tavon Austin.
Yep.
And then I can't. Is it they lost Watkins to?
No, they don't have Tavon Austin.
No, they don't anymore.
Austin.
Trying to think who was he throwing the ball to, because they lost Woods to Buffalo last year.
Right.
I'm having a hard time remembering who they kept around, but I know that Sean McVay will find a way to make it work because he's an offensive guru. Their head coach is going to be there for a long time. But no, coming back to Goff, just overall, this guy is. I really don't know how to put it. He's top 15, but he's. I think he goes under the radar. I think he slips under the radar to a lot of people.
Into his own.
I think him losing to Atlanta in the first round in the wild card had a lot to do with it. But the Rams were able to re-sign guys like Nickel Roby-Coleman. He's a big player in their dime package, and then John Sullivan. We talk about their offensive line. and being sixth best in the NFL, John Sullivan was a guy that they needed to re-sign to make sure they kept their leader on that front five.
Cooper Kupp and Farrell Cooper were the receivers.
Cooper, how could I forget about Cooper Kupp? That guy, what a name! First of all,
Yeah.
what a name! Way to go, Kupp's parents on that one. Cooper Kupp, man. Yeah, he was a stud. He was a rookie last year, right? Don't know where he went to school at, but he's a stud. And their tight end. Oh, I can't remember their tight end. Is it Cooks? Something
Yes.
Cook, I think. I can't.
Jared Cook.
Jared Cook, thank you. Yeah, I tell you what, you talk about underrated tight ends. I think there's one right there. He's a great red zone threat. No, I tell you what, just to stop rambling on here, I got the Rams going 14-2, best record in the NFL, and I think that they're going to win the NFC.
They, like you said, their offense is strong. They got all the pieces right now. And for defense, they had a good defense. They had a good front seven, I should say. They had a couple good pieces on the back end. But they basically went to every team and said, who's your best defensive player? Thanks, we'll take him.
Yeah.
So I think they have, by far, one of the most talented rosters we've ever seen in this game. If they don't go 13-3, 14-2, I would be shocked. I think they have absolutely that talent and more. I think the one thing this hinges on is it's Goff's third season, and it's not even his first season wasn't even a full one. So it's his third season. We'll see how he performs. Basically, if he can hold the ball for 2 or 3 seconds and just throw it, and the defense can perform, they're going to win every game.
I would not be surprised if this defense held opponents to 10, 11 points a game.
Yeah, we're going back to the 70s with this defense.
It's going to happen. They are.
People were talking about the Jags going 16-0. This is the team that people should be talking about. It's nutty what they got going on out there.
Which they don't have an easy schedule, which sucks. But I still think that they could win 14, 13 games easy. They have to play at New England. I think they have to play at Green Bay. That's going to be tough, but I mean, other than that, I mean, these games are very winnable, very winnable. Other than a handful of tough games on the road, but no, I got them winning the division. I got them winning the NFC. I think they should be Super Bowl favorites at this point.
Go ahead and rank your division for me, Gav.
I got the Rams 14-2, winning the NFC West. I got the Niners at 11-5, getting the first wild card spot, or a second wild card spot, excuse me. Then I got the Cardinals at 5-11, Seahawks 4-12.
Tyson?
I had them in the same order. I gave them a little bit different records. I had the Rams at 13-3, 14-2, San Francisco 10-6, Arizona 8-8, 9-7, somewhere in there, and Seattle 8-8 or worse, probably worse, closer to the 4-12, like Gavin said.
So yeah, I just don't think they have enough.
I want to wrap it up with this. Everybody does it. We're going to do it too. We're going to go with the way too early Super Bowl predictions. We're just going to keep it short and sweet. I want your teams, Gavin, and then Tyson, I want your teams. Not only with the teams, I want the winner. Let's just get this way too early Super Bowl prediction knocked out right now.
We've been talking about them the last 5-10 minutes. I got the LA Rams coming out of the NFC, and if I had to pick generically out of the AFC teams, I would go with Pittsburgh or New England.
Safe bet.
Yeah, I think next year. For some reason, something's telling me Brady's going to miss out on the Super Bowl. I'm going to go ahead and say it's Pittsburgh, LA, and the Rams are going to go ahead and walk away with it.
Okay. Just to be different and to say that I am a true fan, I'm going to go Cowboys. It's our year. I can feel it. Elliott's back. 6 more games. I got Elliott going for 1,850 yards. Beat his rookie season. That's not what we're talking about. I'll take the Cowboys and the Patriots. Tom Brady, it's coming to the end. The end is nigh. We can all feel it. And I will take the Cowboys over the Patriots. just to say that I said that. You heard it here first.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we got for you today. We hope you enjoyed what you heard. Obviously, some hot takes thrown in there a little bit. Don't be afraid to say something in the comments. Make sure you share it with your friends and family. We really appreciate it. Make sure you listen to Monday's episode. We're going to be wrapping up MLB free agency. You're going to want to stick around for that. Other than that, my name's Gavin Campbell. That was Tyson Snyder. That's Cale Fleming. We really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to hit the red subscribe button down below and hit the bell icon right next to it so you don't miss a beat. That's all we have for you today. We'll see you next time.
Tell Gavin Josh Rosen's a loser. Peace.